Okay, we're on a social media roll, and let's stay with that and look at millennials and sport and culture and how they're consuming that through social media channels. And let's hear from one particular brand that's made a great success of reaching exactly that audience. Please welcome the Managing Editor of Football and International for the Bleacher Report, Lee Walker.
Good afternoon. As you can see, this is the Bleacher Report recipe for reaching young men. I hope this recipe is far healthier than the pork knuckle I had last night. So let's talk about Bleacher Report. I see some of you in the audience are slightly over the age of 24, so you may not be aware of us. Bleacher Report is a digital sports destination founded in the US in 2005 by 4 high school friends who saw a sports publishing landscape that wasn't filling their requirements. One of those founders, David Finocchio, remains our CEO, and the company has evolved over the last decade very much in the way people consume content in different ways now. So it started off being very search-heavy, meeting supply and demand inefficiencies regarding what sports were covered and what subjects at what time. That was supplemented by a newsletter, and then an app, and then we got big on social, and then we got very, very big on social. So what is Bleacher Report in 2018? I'll show you a TV commercial that we ran in the US last year.
You think you get the game? Of course you do. But you gotta get the style, the look.
You have to get the statement.
And don't forget about the flash.
The flash.
But that's not all, B. You gotta get the kicks.
The booming.
Flip.
Oh, did that clip take it too far?
You got to get the tribute.
We lost a dear friend and a big part of the league's soul.
You have to get the cupcake. What about practice?
It was everything but practice.
You know what? It's not about practice. It's about the stupidity of this question.
You have to get the real answer.
Interesting little bit of celebration from Marquette King.
The no fun. Giddy up. Ah. Like you gotta get the culture, the life, the controversy, the whole thing. Because when you really get all of this, that's when you really get the game.
So you may notice something about that TV commercial, that there were no highlights, there were no goals, there were no touchdowns, there were no slam dunks. Bleacher Report very much identifies itself as a sports culture brand. Sports culture, what does that mean? Well, for men, when we go back to the subject of this, reaching young men, there is no universal language that is culturally bigger than sport. This is how men talk to each other, increasingly on their mobile phones. And when we talk about young men, we talk about a generation that has grown up with unlimited choice. News, highlights are a commodity. They're searching for an alternative. For Bleacher Report, this is how we talk to young people. Young people are craving a non-stop social connection that evokes emotion and confirms identity. And that's very much where we fill into the landscape. And as we're in Europe, I should show you some examples from the world of football, how we tap into that sort of content that really resonates with young men.
Oh my God, I
my lungs.
So that's very much our, that's very much our motto, igniting the power of sports culture to make moments matter. This has led to unrivaled engagement on social media, box scores, game recaps, all that traditional cliched sports content. Yeah, we do it. You'll find it on our app. You'll find bits on social, but this is not the sort of content that 15-year-old boys are sharing with each other. To produce content around games and moments that are instantly shareable amongst young people. It's part of their conversation rather than something that passes them by. So we've got a few examples here, so I can show you a video rather than me just talking about them. Magnifying moments. So the first one is from the European Championships. Iceland were the surprise hit. They beat some country that I forget. I believe it's some country with an aging football team and no real quality anymore. But the thunderclap was a big thing. So this is how we took upon that moment. Now, everyone had seen the thunderclap going around Reykjavik, and it looked a great place to be, apart from the 15-euro beers. But this sort of content is much more shareable than that highlight. Once you've seen the highlight of people in a square or a park, you've seen it. This gives it a new life form. So very much about magnifying the moments, whether they're on the pitch or off the pitch. And then we talk about the culture. So I'll give you an example here from nothing to do with sports at all. This is Chance the Rapper when he won some Grammys, I believe, last year. He's a big Chicago Bulls fan, so this is why we entered the space regarding that moment. Now, he's a big Chicago Bulls fan, as I said. He sits courtside. So it was great we could bring those two elements together. We also did a static image, which he commented on from the awards after he won his second one. He was complaining that we hadn't acknowledged his third Grammy, so we did another image and we put a third Grammy on, and he said thanks. So this is great. His creativity is king. This is what we really try to look upon beyond just what's going on the pitch. And the last one is Be Brash, Do It Differently. This is from our episodic animated NBA-related series called Game of Zones. You may work out what it's based on.
Playing in the paint, I see.
It's my favorite place to draw fouls.
Draw fouls, it was a duck, yeah. There's a team of 12 riders doing that, so. So Game of Zones comes out every week during the NBA playoffs. It's loosely based on Game of Thrones, but it's very much NBA related. We have another one in the NFL called Gridiron Heights. It's full of Easter egg jokes. You have to watch it 4 or 5 times to get all the references. If you go to Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, you see the comments are huge swathes of people, first of all, waiting for the episode to come out and commenting to say them first, and then commenting on all the jokes that they see. For us, this is premium content. It doesn't need to be 2 hours long. It doesn't need to be crazy expensive, although Game of Zones in particular is a lot of hard labor. It takes a long time to create. And it's not about winning awards. It's about content that resonates with a social-first young audience. For us, people racing to be the first comment on Instagram is a premium experience for them. And when we talk about sports culture, we talk about in and out of the game. You must remember that there's only one soccer game a week, 2 games a week. 98% is everything else. So you look at someone like Neymar, like Ronaldo, like Lionel Messi. These are some of the most famous people on the planet. They do, with their own personal social profiles, they're bigger than ever. You could say that Cristiano Ronaldo is possibly the most recognized face on the planet now. I saw he has 122 million Instagram followers as of this morning. And people follow his Instagram account not for his highlights, it's about him, his persona, everything that makes the man. So we talk about 2% in the game, but 98% is everything else. And influence in pop culture. Ronaldo has rocketed since this slide was created from 93 to 122 million. But all these people follow Bleacher Report accounts. There's Bleacher Report, there's BR Football, which I'm the managing editor of, so please follow that. It's great, because I said so. There's also House of Highlights, which is our Gen Z brand, or Gen Z as in Europe. Give you an example of how we can shape conversations. LeBron James and Odell Beckham Jr., who's a huge NFL star, were actually exchanging Happy Thanksgiving to each other on a House of Highlights post on Instagram. House of Highlights also has initiated the Running Man Challenge, the Drive-By Dunk Challenge. This is really influencing pop culture. We have the attention of young men. And when we talk about young men, of course, athletes are young men. They enjoy the content. And it really has a halo effect on the brand when all these superstars are following us, interacting with us, and talking about our content. I won't bore you with too many numbers, but we have huge social engagement. I saw this morning one brand that I won't name. Their interaction rate on Facebook was 0.002, which is pretty low. What we are seeing is that people are copying our playbook. When there's special moments, people are preparing content as we do. The Chance the Rapper play that I showed earlier on, that wasn't created when he won the award. That was prepared, that was anticipated. When Manchester United exited the Champions League last Wednesday, we had highly visual content ready, prepared to go. We also had content prepared if they won. So we have a huge digital graveyard of unused things that we may revisit one Christmas Day or one New Year's Eve, or possibly when someone who's drunk has got in charge of the accounts. We try to make meaningful connections. There's need and there's feed. We all use social media. We all see trash on our Facebook pages, on our Instagram accounts, homogenous content that people just skim by. You know, the 0.003, that doesn't get people's attention when they're scrolling through on their phones. We try to create need content. So for us, need content is the Game of Zones example, where people are waiting to interact with that. That's how you get meaningful time. When we look at these various charts here and various competitors that we benchmark against ourselves, our biggest competitor is time. Why are people going to invest 10 minutes of their day in Bleacher Report content, 15 minutes of their time? What can they be doing elsewhere? It doesn't need to be another social feed. It could be watching Netflix. It could be actually going out in the real world and doing something. But we are trying to compete. Time is a huge enemy. Time deficit is something we're trying to address. How do you do that? Just create good content. That's why we think premium content is our key. And then all devices, all platforms, all of the time. We play where our audience is, so this is a key for us. How do you think we can make money? Well, if you have 1 million, 2 million, 3 million people looking at an Instagram post, then you can sponsor that post as well without degrading the quality of the content. It's amazing how many companies and publishers create content that they think is going to work across all platforms. That's as stupid in our minds as trying to put a DVD into a VCR. These are completely different platforms. So we're on Twitter, which is breaking news, and for us, breaking news with an element of snark to it. Instagram is our number one platform. Engagement rates around 4 to 5%, which some of you may know is very, very high. It's all about elevated social content, elevated visual content. Snapchat Discover, possibly a younger audience. Obviously, this is vertical, so you have to create something entirely separate. Facebook, whatever the algorithm is doing, still good quality that people are commenting on will resonate. So we like to create the best content of the day that you should be sharing with your friends. And then there's YouTube, which is more set up for longer content. So just to finish off, our mantra really is BR is an active community that sees their content as a habit, as a conversation, not as consumption. So we like to be part of the conversation, not just a passive supplier of information. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, a couple of questions from me, as always, but let's look for questions from the audience. For Lee, raise your hand. If you're not too overwhelmed by lunch, it's perfectly okay to make yourself known. So for me, I guess the question that arose looking at your presentation was how international is it possible for this brand to be? Just sort of noticing a lot of the popular culture references were originally from the US, it's transferred to the UK. Football's a very different game in the UK than anything that's used to in the US. How much content can move across borders and how much does it really very much have to be locally generated and locally used?
I think increasingly it can be global. Football is the biggest sport in probably 200 out of 215 countries, whatever we have. So very much we try to keep it honest to the home location. So for example, if Lionel Messi does something crazy, Lionel Messi is as big in Bangalore as he is in Barcelona. As long as you're true to the hometown, the home feeling, yeah, you can't do too much of a niche joke regarding Catalan culture or British culture or American culture. But there are certain unifying cultural forces that we try to hit upon that resonate.
Great. So it is spreadable.
But yeah, I think sport in particular is a global language. Yeah. Football in particular is a global language. NBA, probably second now. That's how we see it. We're very big on soccer and basketball. They're the two main focus sports for us, for a company globally.
Okay. Any more questions for Lee? Do raise your hand. And if not, can I ask you please to thank Lee Walker? Thank you.